Brandon.
Hey, Hannah.
We're going to say it early. Welcome to GhostWritten. Okay. Got that out of the way.
Whoa, hold on. That feels weird.
That's so weird.
We didn't talk about anything else and get sidetracked and derailed and forget to mention the name of the podcast.
It's coming, Brandon. It's coming. I figured the first episode of the year we could be nice to the people and actually let them know what the hell they're listening to, even though they found the podcast specifically and hit play. Just in case.
Yeah, just in case
they're
you're
not
wondering.
like, wait, did I click on the right podcast?
Maybe you just said, to your smart device, hey, whatever your device is, I don't want to set my Google Home off. Maybe you're like, hey, Alexa, play me some podcast with two really sexy goth bitches who are supposed to talk about ghosts, but a lot of the times just end up talking about food and TV. And she says, okay, playing GhostWritten.
Listen, what do we have to do to make that happen?
What's pretty cool.
We need to have some better keywords for searching our podcast.
It was pretty cool the other day. I played the podcast with my smart speaker. You have to say play GhostWritten podcast, but all of a sudden our voices started. The little intro played. I was like, girl, this is cool.
It got weird. You were like, why am I listening to myself?
Yeah. Speaking though of technology, we'll get it in here early. Let's say that you have a relative or someone who just has some amazing ghost stories, and you've said, hey, you guys should really check out this podcast. It's called GhostWritten. They're like, I don't understand podcasts. I don't know what that is, and all I do is get on Facebook. Well, guess what?
We are old people, and we also get on Facebook.
Also, you can listen to our podcast on Facebook now.
You can.
Yeah. So woo-hoo. Facebook now lets us link our feed for the podcast. So if you are capable of just getting someone to look at our Facebook page, there is a section on there that says podcasts, and you can subscribe to it directly on Facebook. I know, millennials and Zoomers, we like to have our little apps, like I've started using Spotify again, so now I just use Spotify for the podcast. But there's some older generations that are less familiar with technology that I think that'll help us maybe get into the ears of people that wouldn't have heard us otherwise. So
maybe, hopefully.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting either way.
Yeah.
Think about all the people that that are only on Facebook. Like when they say, I don't have any social media except for Facebook.
I have an Instagram.
Just saying.
And the podcast grudgingly has the Twitter.
Yeah, that Hannah pretty regularly updates.
I'm just gonna start posting random shit on the Twitter.
Facebook is the happening place.
I'm gonna use Twitter to post all the weird shit that happens at work.
Oh, that would be cool, actually. There's some
the ghost dripped water on me. There's no obvious source of the water.
There are some
don't know what his damn problem is.
There's some of those Twitter threads, like paranormal threads, are actually like really interesting. And I feel like the fact that it's limited to, like, a tweet's limited to 140 characters kind of creates this weird pacing where you just get like a little bit of the story, and you are like following the breadcrumbs.
Just listen to the really stupid shit where I'm like, hey, we're ghosts. Not today, friend. Not today. I'm always the first one in that building. And doors open and close. I can hear them sitting in my desk. Because my desk is open to like the atrium. And I hear doors open and close all the time.
And there's no one else there?
There's nobody there.
Surprise. You thought
Unless
there wasn't.
security's just over there like, oh, that bitch is here.
Yeah, it was like
Let's see how many times she looks.
but yeah, happy to be back. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
Let's hope 2022 is better than last year.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Betty White.
Oh God.
Super sad. Love her to death. Golden Girls is one of my favorite shows ever. Yeah, super sad.
I'm just so sad. Leave to Betty White though to be like, haha, fuck you, a couple weeks from my 100th birthday.
Yeah.
Later, bitches.
Yeah, she's like, peace.
That's what Betty White does.
I know you guys were like planning all this stuff for my 100th birthday, but no. I'm tired.
Nah, I'm good. I'm good. You can do that shit without me. It's fine.
But in all seriousness, no. She's awesome, and it's very, very tragic loss. Over the break, I did a lot of chilling. I got on a little binge of foreign detective shows. I think I talk about that?
This wasn't the beginning of it. Yeah, so you've been doing this for a little bit.
Okay. I think yeah. So I watched a Icelandic show. Then I watched a Danish show. And then listen. So I watched this documentary on Netflix. I was super interested in it. It was about this family in India who all committed suicide on the same day.
What?
Yeah, and there were like 12 of them.
Jesus.
And they were all hanging in their living room from nooses, and like their hands were tied behind their back. And yeah, it was this really gruesome scene. And they talk about how like the father, like the head of the household, kept this like journal where he was supposed to be conveying orders to the family from his dead father. And there were all these theories about like it was some kind of like evil spirit, like a jinn or something, that was like telling him to do all this stuff and like having them do rituals.
Sorry.
Well, but they say it in that. It might be just the translation. But it ended up like they posit all these questions in like the first 3 episodes, and they basically are just like, yeah, the dad was crazy. And it's so unsatisfying because it's like they ask all these questions that I would ask. That's like, how did they convince these children, the youngest of which that was like 10?
Oh my God.
How were they all just cool with killing themselves? You know? And like one of the kids she was a young woman who had just gotten married. Like they made a big deal of like having a big ceremony for her, because like in India they do like a dowry and all this stuff, and
days-long wedding.
Yeah, and it was like 2 weeks before that.
Huh.
And so I thought, they were asking all these questions. So I was like, ooh, what is this gonna be? And it basically just ended up being like, yeah, it's really sad that they were all crazy. And I'm like, no, that's not enough. What do you mean?
We're gonna go ahead and say it's demons.
Yeah, because it probably was. Other than that, I didn't watch too much scurry shit.
I didn't either.
Did I tell you I watched the new Paranormal Activity movie?
No.
That's pretty good. I've seen all of those movies, and
I have not. I've seen the first couple. I've seen the one where they make fun of it.
Yeah. But
which has some spots where I'm like, oh, what?
Yeah. I mean, there's some legitimately good stuff in those movies. Just like, have you ever seen the VHS movies?
Oh my God, it's been a really long time.
They're like anthology horror movies. Really good. Really good.
To have them on VHS.
Really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I didn't know they made
a really extensive VHS collection.
Well, but these are newer movies though.
No, there's an old one. Unless I'm
Okay,
thinking of something else.
maybe. I don't know. We'll
Unless
look it
I'm
up.
thinking of something else.
So you didn't watch anything spooky, read anything spooky?
Not really. I decided to go back through a lot of old lore. Turns out I love Aaron Mahnke, but I'm really good at just like blocking him out when he speaks.
Were you having to like
Get
go
halfway through an
back?
episode, I'm like, wait, what the hell just happened? Like every other podcast, I'm dedicated, but there's something about Aaron Mahnke's voice that
I started listening to a podcast on his network about aliens called Strange Arrivals. Pretty good.
Oh,
It's pretty good.
he has a whole show about the Bridgewater Triangle.
Yikes.
There's a lot of big, like Misha Collins does a voice for it, and yeah, there's a lot of big voices in that.
That's awesome.
I'm giving Brandon crap because the new Patreon episode that will be up shortly is about Bridgewater Triangle. So
Yeah,
if
which
you're not a patron of our Patreon, I've listened to Morbid and they call them Patreons
no patrons
instead of patrons, and it just every time I'm like, ugh, do a little twitch. Patrons on Patreon. But anyway, patreon.com/GhostWritten.
The TLDR of what we just ranted about for a while is welcome back. We're glad to be back.
Welcome back.
We had a nice little break, and
I lit a candle.
I have one too. It's
You?
yeah, it's incense and clove.
Mine is local from a company called Wicked Obscura. It's called Mystic Drifter, and now my house smells like every single witchy shop you've ever walked into.
That's a local place?
Yeah.
Bitch, I'm
It's
going.
in Western Kentucky, actually, but they have a website, Wicked Obscura.
Okay, I'm
Not
checking that out.
sponsored. It's also got wooden wicks. Ashley had a bunch of them lit around her house from there.
Nice.
When we were there.
Okay, I'm gonna check it out.
Kentucky Candles, not sponsored. We do love local arts and crafts, though.
Yeah, and I'm sure that since they're in Western Kentucky, they have some kind of disaster relief for all the tornado stuff that happened out there. So
I'm pretty sure they're from, like, maybe you shouldn't quote me, but I'm very out of sorts today. Apparently. Wicked Obscura Apothecary. Website's www.wickedobscura.com. They are from what the fuck?
Boom, 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 boom.
I remember. I'll find it in a second.
Okay.
Well, we're really glad to be back. We've missed you guys. It's been a long time.
Hopefully you've missed us as well. We need this validation.
Just nobody listens to this episode.
Yeah. They're like, well, fuck those guys. Hannah has got a tale for us this week.
It's me. So now that we're talking about local things, we're in Kentucky today.
Ooh, bring it home.
Have you ever heard of the Little Witch Girl of Pilot Knob Cemetery?
No.
Not to be confused with Pilot Knob, Kentucky, which is not in the same place as Pilot Knob Cemetery. Yeah, no. Pilot Knob is in Powell County.
Okay.
Pilot Knob Cemetery is in Marion, Kentucky. That's in Crittenden County. So that's Western Kentucky.
Okay.
But there's a legend of a haunting a little girl named Mary Evelyn Ford, who was 5 years old.
Oh, God.
So she and her mother, Mary Rebecca Ford, were accused of witchcraft and burned to death.
Jesus. What could a 5-year-old possibly be doing?
Right? Let me see. Sorry. I'm very out of sorts today, guys. You're gonna have to bear with me. This happened in 1916. They were accused of witchcraft and not waiting for a fair trial. It said that they were hunted down by an angry mob of God-fearing townsfolk. Also, one of these articles kept calling them villagers. We don't have villages in Kentucky. I don't
Maybe
think
in
we ever
1916.
have.
That also seems a little recent, though, for there to be like a witch
Right? A
lynching.
friggin' witch. I mean, we do live in Kentucky, though.
Fair.
Let's be fair. They captured them, tied them up, and burned them at the stake. It's reported that the mother screamed out in despair for the mob to spare her young child, but the screams came to no avail, and they were both burned alive. After the brutal slaying of the young girl, the locals started to be afraid that they would have to face their consequences for their actions, and she would come back.
Good.
Because she was a witch.
Good.
So they took some steps. It's unknown as to where the mother is buried, but young Mary Evelyn Ford was buried in Pilot's Knob Cemetery inside a reinforced steel coffin.
Damn.
After lowering the coffin into the ground, it was then filled with concrete and covered in gravel before being surrounded by a steel fence all the way around the gravesite. The fence was made with interconnecting crosses that they believed would keep the spirit of the witch girl trapped within its perimeter.
So they were scared of the little girl more than the mom?
That's what I was thinking when I was reading this. I was like, what about the mom? Why are you more scared of this little girl? But they also separated them. How fucked up is that?
What could a 5-year-old witch do? Like turn her boogers orange? You know, like what would
I don't know, but they were more afraid of the little girl. And the grave is still there. And you can see like the fence around it. There's also a saying in the town that if you stand close enough to the grave at night, the hand of Mary will push through the gravel and pull you towards it.
Sure.
Many locals believe strongly in the ghost of Mary Evelyn Ford and have even reported to see child-sized footprints appear in the gravel during the night. Some say that this is Mary searching for her mother, but being unable to leave the confines of the fence. This is a very small fenced-in area. It's directly around the grave.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only justification for it being there is this story.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was this is more of like some folklore kind of thing.
Okay.
But they say that if you lay on the grave in the gravel, if you lay on the grave, she'll reach out and hold you down and pull you down into the grave. And the only way that you can get up is if somebody else touches you and pulls you up. So they tell you never to go to her grave and do this by yourself.
Okay.
Which is pretty fucking scary.
No, it definitely is scary, but it's also like I couldn't really blame her.
Right?
Know?
No, not at all. Fuck you guys.
God.
So the little witch girl is not the only report of paranormal activity in Pilot Knob Cemetery. There's also the Pilot Knob Watcher.
Oh shit.
It said that it resides around the lonely prison grave of Mary Evelyn Ford. And it makes its presence known to those who pass by, causing them to be overwhelmed with a feeling of fear and anxiousness, knowing that they are not wanted there. And they've reported that they sense a presence that's been so strong that you just have that feeling deep down that someone is watching you right over your shoulder, but never in sight. They've described the feeling as being so intense that you can almost feel the breath of whatever is watching you. Some people have also reported being unable to leave. Their cars won't start right away when they do try to leave. Some say that the Pilot Knob Watcher is the spirit of the child's mother, still filled with anger and rage after the horrendous murder of her beloved daughter, destined to protect her resting place for eternity, but never being able to reach it.
Oh.
I know, right? Others say that the Watcher is a malevolent spirit that haunts the grave of the child to ensure that the spirit remains within the bounds of her steel and concrete prison for all eternity.
Wow. This
Do you want
one's
me to run the legend for you?
this one's heavy. Yes.
It is. It is
Well,
heavy.
because I mean, it's
I really want to know why you would be more afraid of a 5-year-old girl than her mother,
same. But
especially if they're witches.
I've already ruined it for myself anyway, because it's like, oh, they covered her in metal and concrete, but she reaches up through the thing and pulls people down. How?
You don't know how ghosts work? Don't you put your ghost science in this
I'm a
episode,
ghost
Brandon?
professor, okay?
Oh god. Ghost professor.
Tell me the lowdown.
There's very little credible information available about this legend, so we can't confirm the certainty to its true routes. However, it is fact that the grave of little Mary Evelyn Ford still stands within the grounds of Pilot Knob Cemetery, filled with concrete and surrounded by an interlinked white fence. There was another article that says that her mother is buried in the cemetery and that they didn't die at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah, so according to her death certificate, she didn't die as a result of being burned at the stake, but from peritonitis on May 31st, 1916. Also, her mother, Mary Rebecca Ford, was still living after her daughter's death and is really buried in the same cemetery, dying in 1955 at the age of 85 after outliving her husband and at least 2 of her children. Neither was accused of witchcraft or burned at the stake.
I mean, it does ruin the illusion of the story, but also good because it was an awful story.
Well, I started reading about it and I was really confused because Kentucky does not have a history of like witchcraft burnings or accusations whatsoever. We do in Appalachia have the tradition of granny witches, which we were talking about the other day. But they were accepted and were just a normal part of everyday life.
Right. Like, I think, as we've mentioned multiple times before, like growing up in Appalachia, a little bit of superstition is normal. You know, it's just part of
doing
life.
Stupid shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was the little witch girl of Pilot Knob Cemetery. They've apparently replaced her headstone recently. She's got a very nice one with little lambs on it.
Oh.
She died like the same as her birth month. She was born May 9th, 1911 and died May 31st, 1916.
Wow. Poor baby.
I know. At least she wasn't burned at the stake.
That's exactly what I was about to say.
But like people are still experiencing stuff around her coffin and she is buried under concrete.
Oh, legitimately.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, then maybe that story of like the witchcraft just like arose over time as a explanation for why the fence and why the concrete. Maybe it's something more sinister. What if it's a vampire? What if she's a vampire? What if it's not steel? What if it's silver?
Listen, I wonder, so there's not a super detailed history of like folklore and stuff in Kentucky. So like there's no telling all the shit that happened in them hills.
Just saying.
Was never written down.
Yeah. So sad.
Kentucky's a weird place.
It is weird.
We love it though.
Parts of it.
It's our weirdo.
But no, yeah, that's good. I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
Teaching me things, Hannah.
Teaching you things today. But I was reading this like, I'm just gonna make us all really sad. Welcome back to the podcast.
Yeah, hey, it's 2022. Ready to get depressed?
Brandon needed to be relieved from the depression. Please ruin this story for me. Spoiler alert, it was elves.
It was the Wampus Cat all along.
Wampus cat all along. No, this isn't in Appalachia, so no Wampus cat.
Oh, sad day.
Mm.
But yeah, that's a pretty interesting one. As sad as it is, it's a pretty interesting one to kick off 2022. So good job.
Just to add to everybody's seasonal affective disorder, we missed you.
Sad seasonal affective disorder.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's what it's actually called. Brandon.
I know, it's just
Seriously?
it's ironic.
I have a light right here to use during the winter.
But yeah, so welcome back, everyone. We're gonna take you through our normal spiel. We're always accepting your stories, your personal stories. So
Please, we would
feel
love
free-
to do another
feel
listeners
free to
stories episode.
Oh yeah, those, we love those so much. So either message us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, and that's at GhostWritten Pod, or you can email us, and that is ghostwrittenpodcast@gmail.com. Again, don't forget, you can, oh whoops, I just hit my mic. That was probably not a great noise. You can listen on Facebook now. So if that's more convenient for you, do it,
Make your life a
girl.
little easier.
Do it, girl. And whatever platform you guys listen to us on, give us a little rating, give us a little comment, a little review. That helps with everything. And if you'd like to support us on Patreon and listen to Hannah's newest series, which is a limited series,
Series, guys.
feel free to check us out on patreon.com/GhostWritten.
You're gonna
And
get on Patreon and realize that Hannah can rarely finish things.
yeah, but that's that's how she
see
gets
ADHD in action.
She keeps you in suspense. But yeah, if you're able to, please check out our content on there. Help us support the podcast and continue to grow and spread our ridiculous opinions to people all over the world.
That you're going with wings.
Oh, spread our wings and fly away. Also, if you do subscribe on Patreon, not only do you get those special limited series, things like that, but you also get to see the video recordings of each podcast, which we don't post anywhere but on Patreon. So you can see us being ridiculous. But
wrapped in a blanket.
Yeah. Sometimes though, I mean, listen, Hannah's always cute, right? Because just look at her. But sometimes
say Hannah's always cold, which is also true.
That's true as well. Which is so funny because your husband is so not that. He's cold, always hot.
No, I married the perfect person because he's like 1,000,000 degrees. He
But
probably
also,
doesn't think so when I'm like, give me your heat.
You're rubbing your icicle feet up on him.
Yeah.
But also, no, Hannah wears some really cute outfits sometimes. So
Just the blanket today.
Don't miss out on that. But yeah, I think that's it. I think it's time for a spooky outro. Ooh. 2022.